Good morning or good afternoon. I could tell you. Good afternoon. I just said good afternoon. Golly, Sandylane. But for those of you that don't know me, Sandylane Oquendo. So I'm glad that I get to do this so that Julianne doesn't embarrass me with a bio. But Sandylane Oquendo, I work for Rural LISC. I am located in Houston. I'm a shared employee between Rural LISC and Civic Solutions, and I provide support in our capacity building and technical assistance efforts, specifically around Puerto Rico. I've been with LISC a little bit over 4 years in several locations from the local Houston office to a different national programs team, and now happy to support these two teams as of August. So super excited to be working with India, Julianne, Jimmy, and Corey, and the rest of the rural gang. Very intimidating team. So with that, I want to get us started with shared agreements. At LISC, we value shared agreements. We valued our space. So we want to make sure that you feel comfortable that this space is for all of us. In reality, this space is for you all to connect, for you all to learn best practices. So here are a couple of those that I like to share, but feel free to add others to the chat if you feel like we left something out. So we ask that in the moment, right, that we understand that you're very busy, you wear many hats, but if you could be present, I know for sometimes we're not going to ask for you to turn your camera on because sometimes when I join these webinars, that's my breather, right, of being in multiple meetings or just sitting and listening to somebody else facilitate rather than myself. So that is fine. If you feel comfortable turning your camera on, feel also free to do it. Again, this is a safe space. We are going to record, and I know Julianne started recording it already for those that cannot attend, and that will be shared with the network after. So if you don't feel comfortable with that, then please leave your camera off. We will ask that you respect confidentiality. So one rule of thumb is that stories leave, names stay, right? So if we get caught up in conversation and there's an example and somebody just drops a client's name, or even as you're carrying the story, just right, we would ask that you refrain from using the organization or the name of the person who shared the story. So lessons leave, names stay. Questions are highly encouraged. Again, this is your space, so please wait till the end till we have the Q&A, and please pepper these panelists with your questions. We ask that you kind of follow, this is a smaller group, but the three by three rule, right? Like that's kind of like let three other people go before you go again. Let's honor perspectives. And then I invite you to be curious, caring, and open minded. That is how we conquer things. So, with that, I'm going to move us right along into the objectives for today's session. We want you and everyone else that watches this video to gain insights. It's a discovery session, and I'm sure that you're going to learn a lot more from each other than you are from me. We want to share these best practices. We recognize that you are industry experts. So all that we're doing is that we're creating the space, we're the convener, but we recognize that each and every one of you are the experts in your industries, in your communities. So therefore, this is a network. So right now, if we look roughly, we have it's 13 of us on the call, and we all have several years of experiences and lived and professional experiences. So if we were to calculate that, there are lots of years here, right? There are lots of connections. We all have our networks. So let's make sure that we capitalize on that. So my session is going to be fairly short. I am actually going to start uh, I have a stopwatch so that I don't go overtime, because in reality, where the value is in the panelists that we have today that we've invited. So I want you to really take advantage of that. And once I start, then we could go into what we're discussing. So with that, we are going to look at these key principles today. I am not going to go in greater detail, in full honesty, because each of these key principles could potentially be its own webinar. So I want to be cognizant of that, and I don't want to insult your intelligence. We are probably going to spend a good 1 to 2 minutes in mission-driven financial management, because that is the foundation for our entrepreneurs and for anything, to be honest, in full transparency. So we want to make sure that we spend about a good 1 to 2 minutes. The other four components and factors are very important. If you work them correctly, if the clients that we're serving in our BDO network really, the entrepreneurs really embrace this, they could achieve great heights and success. However, if they don't have a strong mission-driven financial management, they're pretty much pointless. So with that, I am going to go ahead and move us forward. Uh, the panel discussion will really complement this portion of the next 4 slides coming up. So as I mentioned, this is where I want to start a little bit aligning that financial planning with the mission and goals, because we want to ensure that the financial decisions that the entrepreneurs that are coming through your doors that you're serving support their business's core purpose and long-term vision, right? So I like to always share when I started in this space many, many years ago with an initiative that was called Coca-Cola Steps Up for Small Business. The first business owner that I ever worked with was in Central Texas. I was in the I had recently retired from the military, so I was still in the Fort Cavazos, what used to be Fort Hood area. And we were helping this small boutique that focused on quinceañera dresses, which is right the Hispanic version of a Sweet 16. And however, they were about 45 days from closing their doors. So when we walked in there, immediately you could tell what was wrong. So you hear boutique, you think couture, you think very unique things. Uh, but when you walked in there, there were piñatas, party favors. And this was because the business owner was so desperate to make money that she was actually cannibalizing her own business and her own image. She had watered down that boutique image. So we had to bring her back in to talk about the mission and goal. Like, what is it really that you're trying to accomplish here? And she's like, well, I want to give quinceañeras a beautiful dress without having them break the bank, their parents. I was like, okay, so then we need to focus on the dresses and not the piñatas, because you're not really going to find a lot of piñatas and quinceañeras. So we had to bring her back into and ground her back into that foundation. And the steps for the alignment, right? Why do we want to do this? Is because that gives them, it narrows their focus. Yes, it's good to have different products, different services, but they should complement each other and it shouldn't take away. It helps them set financial goals that reflect on mission outcomes, right? So outputs lead to outcomes. So that is very important. What I'm doing, what's going to impact, what am I going to get? What's going to be my return on investment from me taking this approach? It helps them develop a budget that prioritizes the mission-driven initiative. Everything goes back. That mission should be that center, that nucleus. And hopefully they achieve a regular review to ensure that the alignment is ongoing, or if they have evolved, right? Well, like we see this most on bigger businesses, right? When they're like, this product is no longer because we've moved on to this one. However, it's not that easy for smaller businesses that you are dealing with sometimes they're one man, one women shop. Key considerations are the strategic planning. For small businesses, I try to right, strategic planning could be really intimidating. So maybe we go with action planning. And then stakeholder engagement. So they tell you, I'm one person. They're like, okay, who are your customers? Those are your stakeholders. Do you have investors? Like, are you working with BDOs? They're all stakeholders. Risk management is one of those that nobody wants to talk about because they get really scared, right? They're like, does it mean that I'm going to fail? So we need to get over that bump of risk management because they should be forecasting, anticipating challenges, because it's not if they happen, it's just a matter of when they're going to happen. So if we learn and with our customers, our entrepreneurs to talk and and so they could become comfortable talking about that, it's easier for them. The benefits of having this mission-driven financial management foundation is that it provides the entrepreneurs with operational clarity and focus. Its efficiency and affords sustainability, and they have stronger stakeholder trust when they do have the capacity to go out and search for capital or work even with organizations like yourself, right? You do want these organizations to be successful, not to close within a year or so. So with that, like I said, that's the one that I'm going to spend the longest. They should be investing in capacity building. This is one that we often see, even in big organizations. They're like, I don't have money to train people, but people are your most important asset, right? You have to train your employees. You have to stay competitive. You have to stay upfront. So if they start focusing on seeing it as an asset versus a liability, I think that shifts their culture and their mindset, because technology also, that's another thing for capacity building. You have to stay up, and for small businesses, especially the ones that come through our doors, it's really hard to be with cutting edge technology, and they don't have to have, right, they don't have to keep up with the Joneses, but it would be beneficial to see where there's some small investments that they could do that could help them increase their efficiency and productiveness, especially in this world where everything is digital now. Program evaluation is one that hardly nobody touches, right? When we talk about small businesses and we talk to small businesses, they don't sit down and evaluate. Ideally, right? It should be on a quarterly basis. They should be looking at their books. They should be making sure that those finances align with mission and that the outputs are leading to the outcomes that they want. And then at the end of the year, their annual reconciliation. We know that small businesses, a lot of them are not doing that. And the benefits of this is that it enhances that organizational effectiveness and increases long-term sustainability, right? And a lot of our small businesses are thinking about the now. They're not forecasting, they're not projecting about 10 years from now. What am I going to do? Where do I want to be? Stakeholder engagement, that's another big one. And I've often heard where, well, what stakeholders are you talking about? It's just me. I'm the owner, I'm the operator, I'm the marketer, I do everything. I'm a one man, one woman shop. But there are a lot of stakeholders, the communities that they serve, their clients are their stakeholders. You, as the BDO who are serving them, are a stakeholder. So we want to make sure that they are aligning with people that align with their mission and purpose, right? And that's why that foundation is very important, because if they're all over the place, then they're not being able to align their stakeholders. Key components for this, right? It helps anticipate future revenue and expenses, especially with the stakeholders that are bringing money into your system, right? Like the ones that are paying for your products, the ones that are paying for your services. If you can't anticipate, right? I'm going to go back to that example in Fort Hood. In the military, it's hard to be around a military installation because you have to stay business ready at all times. Your clients are going to change every 3 to 5 years. So if you think that you have this client base set, before you know it, it's going to be a whole slew of new people. So you have to anticipate for that. And that's part of those goals, knowing, right, that goal setting, where am I going? Where was I, like, kind of gauging? And having that sustainability lens to focus on incorporating strategies and again with the mission, going back to what my why am I doing this, what is driving my work. The benefits of this is providing financial stability and preparedness. It strengthens the alignment with long-term goals, so we're starting to create some synergy with the now and the future, and then supports that sustainable, that growth and impact, hopefully, right? If they're working adequately, then it'll lead to growth and impact. Impact measurement. I don't know about you, but how many, with a show of hands, how many of your clients, when you're working with them, tell you like, I did an evaluation, I measured my impact for 2023. Usually they're talking about dollar figure if they do bring that, like, the sales weren't great, right? That's usually the impact that they're measuring. So but we don't see it a lot. So if we start creating that culture from when they're smaller, newer, and those that are not new but are still operating at a newer level, then we could really help them become successful. And a part of that is involving again the key stakeholders. So you see how these complement one another. They engage their staff. If they already have staff, hopefully they're engaging investors, especially if they're trying to get their money. They're working with organizations like yourself. We don't want to be surrogate decision makers for them, but we do want to create the space where we could ask open-ended questions, and it could lead to that brainstorming, to decision making that is going to be strategic to help them grow as small businesses. The key strategies, right? Who has vested interest in the organization's success, right? Like, who are like my clients are key stakeholders? Do I have, right? I'm working with XYZ organization. Obviously, they're interested in my success. Can I work with a small bank that provides capital, whether it's a local bank, a small credit union, whatever the case may be? But that helps them, right, kind of determine that, foster communication, establish open lines of dialogue, that will lead to proper decision making. And with that, sorry, I don't know what I touched. With that, you right, they take ownership. There's connection, and there's that collective commitment, especially with these small businesses that are very rooted in small communities, which is often the ones that you're seeing. So that is my short presentation. I am going to go ahead and introduce our panel. Like I said, we will go into further questions of this. So without further ado, because this is really where we are going to get the benefit today, I am going to go and get our panelists queued up. India, can you highlight our panelists as please, as I read their short bios? So with us, we have three amazing panelists who are in different geographic locations and work with small business owners more than me. So they are really the experts. Joining us is Sue Nicholson, a dedicated leader in the business community who now serves on the board of Biomedical Research and Innovation Park, or BRIP for short. BRIP's mission is to foster local talent and build a collaborative ecosystem with a special focus on supporting rural communities and aiding the underserved and underrepresented. Throughout her career, Sue has been instrumental in recruiting over 100 million in funding. Her efforts have helped build critical infrastructure and facilities for BRIP and establish programs specifically designed to support small businesses and entrepreneurs. As president and CEO of the Monroe Chamber of Commerce, she led initiatives that guided Louisiana businesses through significant challenges such as Hurricane Katrina, the Great Recession, and the COVID-19 pandemic. She also spearheaded major infrastructure projects, including the airport terminal and the Kansas Lane extension. Sue remains committed to advancing economic development and creating opportunities for small businesses, particularly in rural and underserved communities, through her work with BRIP. So welcome, Sue. Next, we have Jayme Prenger. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, it's Prenger.
Prenger. I apologize for that. I read in Spanish, sorry. Director of the Missouri Women's Business Center, a program of Central Missouri Community Action. Jayme is a professional fundraiser and coach with over 25 years of marketing and sales experience. Her journey in this field was fueled by her passion for helping people and bringing her diverse experiences together into a singular, fulfilling role. The newest project she is working on is a capital access program where MOWBC will bridge the gap between small business owners and funding through financial literacy. And last, welcome, Jayme. Last but not least, Jose Rivas is a seasoned professional with 15 years of experience in the business sector. He is a certified economic development finance professional. Although he holds a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences, his passion for business led him to thrive in the private sector, developing personal ventures and supporting business growth for clients. Throughout his career, Jose has gained extensive experience working with companies of all sizes. He currently serves as a senior business development officer in the Enterprise Center at PathStone, where he is dedicated to advancing the organization's mission of improving economic self-sufficiency and quality of life for individuals and communities. The mission is fulfilled through business training, technical assistance, and access to capital for new and expanding businesses across Puerto Rico and upstate New York. In addition, Jose brings significant expertise in underwriting, having overseen more than $200 million across 1,800 plus applications. He has also led closing and compliance teams for federally funded programs, showcasing his leadership and deep understanding of complex financial operations. So I am going to stop sharing so that we could see our panelists. We're going to get us kicked off. Welcome, Jose. We're going to get us kicked off with an organization overview. If each of you could give an organization. We will go ahead and do Jayme, Jose, and Sue. I'll be switched kind of changing it, just FYI for the questions. So how does that first one sound? We'll kick it off to you, Jayme, then Jose, and then we'll close out with Sue.
All right, thank you so much. So my name is Jayme Prenger. I am the director for the Missouri Women's Business Center. We serve women and minorities and any entrepreneur who is really focused on learning how to grow their business. We serve Central Missouri. We have 8 counties that are our core counties in the central part of the state, but we can serve anyone in the state of Missouri. We have many programs that we work with them, but the biggest one that we do is technical assistance. So the one-on-one coaching with the clients to really help them get from where they're, an idea phase all the way through to business plan. And so we will celebrate 10 years in 2026. So we're looking forward to that and already gearing up for that. As she said earlier, we just kicked off our new capital access program, which includes micro lending and Kiva and some bank programs here in Central Missouri.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jose Rivas. PathStone Enterprise Center is based in upstate New York and Puerto Rico. Our mission is to empower small and medium-sized enterprises, providing technical assistance, financial education, and resources to foster sustainable growth. We specialize in small business lending, federal contracting, and business resiliency. Through workshops, webinars, and one-on-one technical assistance, we impact businesses enhancing their financial literacy, securing contracts, and ensuring compliance with complex regulations. Our goal is to bridge the gap between business and opportunities while promoting economic resilience across Puerto Rico and improving financial literacy with our participants.
I'm Sue Nicholson with the Biomedical Research and Innovation Park, and I'm here with Virenda Chikkara, who serves as president for the organization. And we're building an ecosystem for Louisiana. We're in the Northeast area, but we have partners in Hammond, which is Southeast Louisiana, and in Lafayette and Lake Charles, which is Southwest Louisiana. And we're looking primarily for disadvantaged businesses, especially disabled veterans, females, and minorities. And our focus areas, particularly in the tech area, technical services. And as we've developed this area or this network across the state, we've worked with over 300 small businesses. And what we have discovered in working with these businesses is that risk management is a significant deficiency with many of these small businesses. So figuring out how to sit down with the businesses and look at and help them understand why it is so important to address risk management, what that means for their business success. And as I mentioned, we're in Louisiana. In the last 5 years, we've had the pandemic, a hurricane, a tornado, and a flood. So in Louisiana, a risk for business is going to happen. And helping them understand what they can do to mitigate that, and that by doing so and being prepared, they actually can have a really resilient business. And BC, would you like to add
Absolutely, all of the above, and we definitely provide technical assistance, financial literacy, and what when Shay was going over the slides, that's exactly what we provide out of BRIP, and we work with several resources along with campus, Chamber of Commerce, and other agencies to help as many business possible as we can.
Thank you. So now let's get to, that was the easy part. Talking about you was the easy part. Let's start. If Sue and VC could get us started, how can BDOs assess the financial health of their clients effectively?
So number one step as a BDO, what we do with client is we start from cash flow analysis. Numbers are something that shows the picture of the business, and that goes back to evaluating your quarterly goals and what you are going to do in next 2 or 3 years. That cash flow itself will give you an idea. When is your business going to see some need of influx of capital? At the same time, when do you need to improve the sales and reduce your expenses? And when can you make that growth strategy? So the first simple answer is need assessment or risk management is start from numbers. Financial planning and cash flow is the key to any future success. That's the base.
Thank you. Jose, Jayme, would you like to add to that answer?
Absolutely. Totally on board with, you have to start with cash flow. That's the way you start. We go and do a little bit of what we like to storytelling. We like to prepare like a business financial scorecards and try to explain visually to the entrepreneurs what would be those actionable items and actual times where they would need additional cash flow, or to overall see where all their efforts are going to. We also like to do like a Pareto chart type of exercise with them, so they can figure out where their business is and where they want it to be.
I'm going to say that we try to start with financial literacy, because what we have found is that so many of our, especially like first generation entrepreneurs, don't even understand where to start. And so making sure that they have a good foundation of understanding of finances and what it's going to take to run and operate a business. So I can say cash flow all day long, but if they don't understand what that means, then like we're not getting anywhere. And so really making sure that they have a good understanding of that. And sometimes that then goes back into their personal finances, because if you don't know how to do a business budget, you probably don't know how to do a budget for your home. And so we work hand in hand with our Financial Opportunity Center at Central Missouri Community Action to really make sure that both sides of the finances are understood. And again, that's building that foundational learning part. And then we can go from there. And so sometimes that takes a little longer than a business owner wants to do, but we know that that is the right way to do it, because if you don't understand, you can't learn and you can't grow and build from there.
Thank you. Now we're going to start with you, Jose. Building on that, what financial risks do small businesses typically face, and how can they mitigate them?
It boils down to a couple of points: inconsistent cash flow, lack of access to capital, and unexpected compliance costs with all these rising costs in raw materials, the cost of doing business. We try to facilitate the access to resources and training offered free of charge from our network of experts. Where we are really looking for is that they not only ask for capital, but they understand if they really need that extra capital, or if some changes, organizational changes, can actually be more beneficial than taking on additional debt. So we try these teachings. We help business so they can engage in this higher level of financial conversation, not only with us, but with their financial institutions, with their tax professionals, other stakeholders, so they can actually understand and explain where they are they need to, or they want to go.
Thank you. I'll toss it to BC and Sue, and we'll close this question up with Jayme.
Well, I would add that part of it is certainly cash management, but pricing impacts and supply chain can really, really impact the cost of goods. That certainly goes back to just cash flow.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Biggest issue with financial risk, and as Jose was mentioning, if you cannot fill up your shelf, your customer is not going to come there. And going back to Jayme, keeping it simple, that we call it like KISS, but then there's another S, keep it simple, silly. So that's the philosophy, I think, and Jayme hit it on the nail. Head of the nail. If they can see the cash flow and how they can fulfill their inventory, what's their inventory cycle in any business they're talking about, so they can assess what will happen in 6 months. Pricing, they do not have direct control, but at the same time, the competitor also do not have the same control. So they all are going in the same direction. Now, mitigation wise, there are several ways you can divert this risk. A, being ahead of the curve, knowing what's coming next, reading too much financial Wall Street journals, or talking to professionals like all BDOs. We are here, we do that for a living. That help any business. And then they can also go for automation, new work. Again, reducing workforce is not typically, I'm talking about automation. I'm saying streamlining of the process is key, and eliminating those excess subscription service, your Spotify accounts, your all those, again, goes back to same thing, financial literacy. So that's our answer.
Thank you. Jayme closes out with this question, and we have one more before we open it up.
All right. So the one thing that I tell almost every client I work with is know your numbers. You need to know how much money is coming in. You need to know how much money is going out. You need to know where it's going. You need to know who you're paying. You need to know, especially like he was saying, that, you have these subscriptions and it automatically comes out. You need to know those numbers, and you need to be checking your account regularly. If you do that, then you're not coming to me when you're in crisis mode and you're like, oh, please help me figure this out. I can't pay my workers and I can't keep the lights on. Like at that point, it's almost too late for me to really jump in and help. I can advise you, but it's probably not going to help you enough to keep the business afloat. And so really knowing those numbers and knowing what that's going to take so that then you can build your sales goals and things like that off of it. You just have to know those numbers.
Thank you. So we have one more question. We're gonna do a lightning round. And so 1 minute per answer, please, so we could open up to Q&A. What internal financial controls can businesses implement to reduce risks? Jayme, Jose, Sue.
1 minute, here we go. Again, know your numbers, make sure you're looking at your accounts regularly, make sure you talk to any of your employees about sales goals on a regular basis. And again, I'm going to go back to know your numbers, because if you know those numbers, you know when you're out of balance, you know when you're not supposed to be doing something, and it saves you.
Create your budget and follow the budget. That's right.
Exactly. It's like you have to implement sound internal controls, and we advise strongly to establish clear accounting procedures, segregate financial duties, and to regularly reconcile accounts. I mean, if you don't have sound on-time information and data, you can't make informed decisions on anything on your business.
Thank you. If I could get participants to give our panelists a big round of applause. We practice these panels and then time goes super quick, right? So now this is your time. We wanted to make sure that we left a lot of time for you to ask questions. So please take advantage of this time, because if not, we came prepared to ask you all questions. So let's you should be able to unmute yourself if permitting, if you're going to ask a question, if you're able to turn your camera on, and let's fire up Q&A.
Well, I will ask probably directly from Jayme. You mentioned about some capital program for businesses. Can you explain a little bit more if that fits in the criteria, since no one else is asking a question?
Absolutely. So we know that many of our clients that we work with do not have access to capital, and a lot of times it's under $5,000 that they need to kind of get things going. So we're talking about or where we've created a micro lending program. We got funding for this from a private investor for $500 to $5,000. So we have a pot of money that then we can lend out in any increments between 500 and 5,000. And what we do with that is we are purchasing a CD at the bank, and we will secure the loan for the client to then go in, and then they work with the bank directly to get that loan, and they're building their credit at that point. It's zero risk for the bank, so credit score doesn't come into play at that point because we've secured the loan, and then the risk is pretty much all on us. And so if they pay back the loan in full, we get that plus the interest on the CD for that time, and it goes back into a revolving loan fund. But if they don't, then we only get the portion back that they did pay back. So that's why we meet with them. We coach with them on a regular basis. So if they're in if they're getting a microloan from us, it's called a program. So they have to meet with us on a regular basis, which is monthly. They get financial coaching as well as business coaching during that time. And that's when we partner with the Financial Opportunity Center. So if they need to work on their personal finances, and in the meantime, they're also meeting with the Financial Opportunity Center financial coach. And so we case manage them together on that.
Thank you.
Julianne, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yes, mostly we've gotten a few questions in the chat anonymously, both to me and Jimmy, and Jimmy's having some problems with his microphone. So I'm going to be me and Jimmy, if you can imagine me in both, like a split role. But we have quite a few questions for you all, and I'm going to try to represent them well. All four of you, including Sandylane in this, I'm assuming, have mentioned risk management and or resilience, and you have some advice and focuses to mitigate the risk. What advices or resources do you provide or suggest for a small business for that first 24 hours of a crisis to mitigate the long-term financial impact? All three of you are in spaces with, I'm assuming where this is coming from. All three of you have had experience with like really rapid climate issues. Also, we're still in the pandemic, which is considered a crisis. And then there's also, safety issues that I know that some of our folks on this call have had where their community is in lockdown due to some kind of safety crisis. So what is that first 24 hours? What do they need to put together? What do you suggest that they then can mitigate whatever long-term impact of whether they have to close their doors or briefly, or they have to stay safe? Like, what do you got? Like, what do you got? How do you support that first 24 hours?
What we tell them is start from bring out your financials, bring your books out, go line by line, see where you are, see where the issue is lying, and what can you do to avoid the catastrophic impact after 1.5 inventory cycle. Because typically you have on your shelf roughly around 30 days supply or 20 days supply, and you ran out of that. That is where the problem lies. The biggest issue is when your cash inventory cycle is low, you're not able to put order for the next one if it's a retail. If it's a restaurant, then they cannot keep their doors open again because they can order raw material what they're requiring. Same goes to manufacturing. If you break that cycle once, it will take you 3 more cycles to come back into action, and you do not want to take debt on top of debt. So that is not the solution. So you have to go to the drawing board, going with the numbers, knowing the finances, bring every single receipt for last 2-3 years down in that situation. Bring your tax papers out, because if it's a disaster most of the time, then you need those for the disaster assistance, hands down, and make videos.
And I would add, that's exactly why you need to have that risk management plan before that event. And once it's happened, it really is tough. If you have a flood and all those papers were damaged, then it really makes it tough to start developing the next step.
Yeah, exactly. I will only add that the same way that on our personal lives, we do like a safety net fund to say that I can operate my expenses for at least 6 months, 6 months. The same should be done and applied for a business. So for the first thing that you would do is assess how well your account with that money is, to see how long you can sustain yourself before like restarting operations or just going back to the drawing board. How much funds do you have before you have to go and incur in additional debt?
So I would say that you've got to be honest with yourself. A lot of times our clients will come in and they'll only share half of the situation with us, and or they're having personal things going on in their personal life that's affecting the business. And so first and foremost is, like, I tell them, this is a honest, safe zone. You can share whatever. There's no judgment here. We're just looking for solutions. And so if I don't know the whole truth, then I can't really help you the whole way. So that would be the first and foremost part of it. And then again is we've got to see like where we can get some revenue or something generated quickly. So if it's a retail business, can we discount some things and get some stuff out the door? What can we do that we can make some movement fairly quick? I know that like the childcare industry here in Missouri, we had a big hit about, I'd say it's about 6 or 8 months ago, where the state was about 9 months behind in subsidy payments. And most businesses cannot float their business for 9 months. And so we had a lot of childcare providers that were having to close their doors because they weren't getting that reimbursement back for subsidy. And so again, if you know your numbers, then you knew that that was happening, and we can get a plan in place a lot faster than if you're 9 months down the road and you are owed 9 months worth of subsidy payments. You know, that's a different story than if we're 1 or 2 months out from that. So, you know, again, it's case by case basis, but you know, we definitely want to try and see where we can generate some income quickly and what could happen from that.
Julianne, I'll share a couple of best practices when I used to be in the space working directly with entrepreneurs. Because a lot of entrepreneurs are skeptical about the word risk management, we would talk about business continuity books, right? So that's what we would talk about. And they would be tasked with creating a business continuity book that would be specific to their business and the environment where they live in, right? So if it's an environment, we live in Houston, right? We know that there's a hurricane season. So how do you cover? And in those business continuity, there, the financial portion, right? The cash in days that I think everybody has mentioned here, is crucial, because that determines if they're going to go into part-time status, right? Like they know how many days they have in cash to continue operating if funding doesn't come in. But also, how do they plan if they're in a flood zone? How do they make sure that their equipment doesn't get impacted? So all of that is part of that business continuity plan. So they could identify who is the all-star team that comes out before, right? To plan ahead before whatever they're preparing to ensure, right? I know business continuity plans went out the door when COVID hit, because when stay-at-home mandates went out, I think everybody grabbed a couple of things and left and said, like, yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks. I am no longer with the company I was in, right? I started working with LISC shortly after that. So I never went back to the office. But so we know that they're only as good as our imagination could go, but they are a lot of help, and they should always be reviewed. Just because they create a business continuity plan today, it should be something that they review pretty often to make before any, again, if we're in a hurricane season, they should be looking at that business continuity plan in Q1 before the season starts in June.
I think Jimmy's got his sound back, and he had a question he just chatted me about. So, Jimmy, are you back? If you're talking, we can't hear you. I love technology, also hate it. Well, while you're working on that, Jimmy, we do have another question. What are some of the you kind of mentioned this, like, all of you sort of mentioned this already, or where are the small businesses pushing back? What are the excuses and reasons and obstacles that they are saying is the reason they don't adopt a continuity plan or create a risk management? Like, where are they pushing back with this in this space, so that like maybe the rest of the room can like learn from your experiences and figure out a way like around them?
Well, I think for many of our clients, they're just intimidated by the thought of, you know, how do you even begin, and how do you know what might be a risk? And so talking through all of that, and then, you know, kind of once you've laid all the cards on the table, things like, you know, now with cybersecurity and IT, that's a whole different realm. But then, you know, sitting down and talking about, okay, so here are all the potential risks, but what are the probability of them happening? And, you know, you don't need to go and try to deal with every possible risk that can go out there, but the most likely risks. And once they can start developing that, we worked with someone who they developed a book with all of their different important papers, and they call it their big black book, and they have one at the office and one at home. And it really gave them a lot of security once they had that together.
And to start with businesses, and we have been doing this, and I'm glad Armando is not on the call. He's expecting a quarterly report. But we were busy creating a framework. A future doctor is laughing about it, but trust me, there's a pressure. So we are working on a framework that we go with a checklist. We are working with our campus, university we are associated with, and we are working with their risk management department, developing a framework that we are asking specific questions, very simple, from the business owners, that is giving them an idea to start thinking in the direction what Sue was just mentioning. Previously, we were defined for 6-month backup. Now, since pandemic, we have seen 1 year, 1.5 years is now like, it's I think you plan for the disaster, because anything can happen and everything can happen. So that's how we handle kind of what she was saying, and then framing the question itself. And once we have the document completely kind of tested enough, we love to share with other folks if you want to take that out.
Yes. Yes, we will take that and share it and give you, that's great.
I was just
Jayme.
gonna add, oh, go ahead, Jose, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, just short. At least with entrepreneurs in Puerto Rico, they see it as a non-essential task. They see it as a that is not a good use of actual resources. Pairing that with not having a strong financial literacy background, they don't see the risk of the long-term risk that not being prepared for any kind of disaster can be. I mean, it can be disastrous. Not a disaster can be a natural disaster, a man-made disaster. A lot can happen.
I would just say that, what I share with our coaches all the time is that we can't want it more than them. And so we can give them the information and we can try to help them as much as possible. But, like we're trying to convey the reasons why we would do this. We give them examples as to why you would do this and why not to do that. But again, they have to want to do that. And that comes with the sustainability of a business. And, sometimes we have to have those hard conversations where we say, do you want to be around in 5 years? If you do, these are some best practices. And this has shown and proved to work. And so sometimes having those hard conversations with them is exactly what we have to do. We have to share with them all this information, and still at some point, like, you have to just say, okay, this is now in your hands. And you have to take ownership to that, because I, as your coach, cannot want this more than, you want this. And so again, it's your business. And if it makes it, it's because of you. If it doesn't make it, it's because of you.
Well, thank you all very much for giving us your time. And I love, Jayme, you ending it up with it's in your hands now. You've all listened to this great panel of folks with some advice and great suggestions. And thank you for the three of you for agreeing to be on this panel and share your insights. And thank you, Sandylane, for leading this conversation. For those of you who don't know me, you're probably waiting for an email from me, but I'm the Senior Program Officer, Workforce and Financial Prosperity. It's coming today, I swear. But I really appreciate everyone spending their time with us. This will be recorded and put on YouTube, and we'll be sharing the PDF. But thank you all so much. And I hope you all join me in wishing Sandylane the best of luck. She's going off to defend her dissertation in the next hour. So next time you see Sandylane, it'll be Dr. Sandylane Oquendo. But thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your beautiful Wednesday afternoon.